"Sir, I learned this song from my mom." Those innocent words will unravel a mafia boss's entire world. A haunting melody from a forgotten piano echoes a buried past, a lost love, and a secret that could destroy him or save his soul. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The night was quiet, too quiet for a man like Leo, the maestro Bianchi. In his penthouse at the top of the Aurora Tower, the silence was a thick blanket. It was a silence he had paid for: triple-paned windows, soundproofed walls, a fortress of quiet. Outside, the city of Casalino buzzed, but in Leo's world, there was only the soft hum of the air conditioner and the faint, familiar ache in his left knuckles, a reminder of a disagreement settled earlier in the evening. He stood by the window, a glass of amber whiskey in his hand, not drinking, just holding it. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and white. He was a man of control, of order. His empire, built on imported olive oil, construction, and less talked about things, ran like one of his beloved Swiss watches. His men, like David and James, were loyal gears in that machine. But this silence, tonight it felt empty. It felt like a ghost was sitting in the plush leather chair behind him. Then he heard it. It was so faint he thought he'd imagined it. A single, clear piano note, then another. They wove together into a melody. Leo froze. The glass stopped halfway to his lips. The music was coming from below. It was impossible. The penthouse was the top floor. Below him were offices, empty at this hour. And below that, the old Orpheum Theatre. A beautiful, crumbling ruin he owned but never visited. A place scheduled for demolition next month to make way for a parking garage. The melody grew. It was a nocturne, slow, sad, and hauntingly beautiful. It was also technically perfect. The phrasing, the delicate touch on the high notes, the deep, resonant sorrow in the lower chords. It was a piece he knew. No, it was a piece he made. His heart gave a violent thud against his ribs. He hadn't heard this music in over 25 years. He had never written it down. He had composed it in his head and with his hands late at night for an audience of one, for Isabella. Without thinking, he put the glass down. The whiskey sloshed over the side, staining the polished mahogany table. He didn't care. He moved to his desk, pressed a button. "David, James, meet me at the private elevator. Now, no questions." His voice was a gravelly whisper, but it carried the force of an order. He grabbed his jacket, the fine silk lining whispering, and shrugged it on. He didn't take a gun. This wasn't a threat, he understood. The elevator ride down was silent. David, a solid man with a shaved head, and James, younger with watchful eyes, stood behind him. They felt the tension radiating from their boss. They had never seen him like this. He was usually ice. Now he was a live wire. "Boss," David ventured as the elevator doors opened into the basement garage. "Trouble." "Music," Leo said, striding out towards the heavy metal door that led to the theatre's back passages. "Follow, be quiet." They exchanged a look but followed. Leo pulled a large, old-fashioned key from his chain and unlocked the door. It groaned open, releasing a smell of damp plaster, old velvet, and dust. The music was louder here. It echoed through the empty halls, bouncing off peeling murals of Greek gods. It was coming from the main auditorium. Leo walked as if in a dream. He pushed through the faded red curtains at the back of the stage. The vast, empty theatre spread out before him, seats shrouded in ghostly white cloth. A single, dusty work light was plugged in near the stage, casting a weak yellow pool. And in that pool was a grand piano, its lid missing, its wood scarred and cracked. And at the piano was a child. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9. Her clothes were clean but worn, a simple blue dress and a cardigan too big for her. Her dark hair was tied in a messy braid. Her fingers, small and delicate, flew across the yellowed keys with a skill that made no sense. She was playing his nocturne, the one he called Isabella's lullaby. She played the unfinished ending, the part where the melody faded into a question mark, exactly as he had always played it. Leo felt the world tilt. He must have made a sound because the music stopped abruptly. The girl's hands froze above the keys. She turned slowly on the piano bench. Her eyes were huge in the dim light, not scared but watchful. They were a familiar shade of hazel flecked with gold. "Who are you?" Leo's voice was rough, scraping out of a tight throat. The girl didn't answer. She just looked at him, then at David and James looming behind him. "It's okay," Leo said, forcing his voice softer. He took a step forward, holding up a hand to stop his men. "The music, where did you learn that song?" The girl blinked. She had a smudge of dust on her cheek. She looked at the piano, then back at him, and in a clear, sweet voice that cut through the dusty air, she said, "Sir, I learned this song from my mom." thud, the words hit Leo like a physical blow. He actually took a step back, the air left his lungs. From your mom. The girl nodded. She taught it to me. She said it was special, that it was a story without words. What is your name? Leo asked, each word careful, precise. Bella, the girl said. Bella, short for Isabella, his wife's name, a common name he told himself, a coincidence. And your mom's name, what is her name, Bella? Elena, the girl said simply. Elena, not Isabella. A wave of dizzying relief and crushing disappointment washed over Leo. He was going mad, hearing ghosts, seeing ghosts. This was a street kid with a good ear, that was all. Where is your mom, Elena, now? He asked. Bella's lower lip trembled just for a second. She straightened her small shoulders. She's gone. She got very sick 2 months ago. She's with the angels now. The stark, simple statement from a child was more powerful than any adult's tears. Leo felt a pang that wasn't his own. I'm sorry, he said, and he meant it. Who looks after you? I look after me, Bella said with a brave, heartbreaking pride. Mom taught me how. I come here to practice. The piano is sad, but it still works. How did you get in? James asked, his practical voice breaking the spell. Bella pointed to a side of the stage. There's a loose board near the fire escape. It's my secret way. Leo walked closer, his expensive shoes crunching on plaster debris. He looked at the piano, at the girl, at her small, capable hands. The song, did your mom write it? Bella shook her head. No, she said she learned it from her heart. She said her own mother taught it to her when she was little like me. It's a family song. Her own mother taught it to her. The sentence unspooled in Leo's mind slowly, then with terrifying speed. Isabella was gone. She had taken their baby daughter, whom they'd named Rose. Yes, little Rose. If Rose had grown up, if Rose had a daughter this girl's age. Bella, Leo said, kneeling down. It put him at her eye level. The dust from the floor stained his tailored trousers. He didn't care. Your grandmother, what was her name? Bella thought for a moment. Mom didn't talk about her much. She said she died a long time ago. But she had a beautiful name, like in a storybook. Isabella. The world stopped. Leo heard David's sharp intake of breath behind him. He saw the theatre walls seem to pulse in and out. Isabella, his Isabella, this child's grandmother, which meant her mother Elena was his daughter, his Rose. The shock was so complete it was painless for a moment. A white, silent void. Then the questions crashed in like a tidal wave. Where was Rose? Why was she calling herself Elena? How did she die? Who was Bella's father? Why come here to his theatre now? Boss, David's voice was low, urgent. We should go. This place isn't secure. Leo ignored him. His eyes were locked on Bella. He saw it now. The curve of her brow, the shape of her eyes, the stubborn set of her chin. It was Isabella's face looking back at him, mixed with something else, his own sharp cheekbones perhaps. This was no coincidence. This was a message. A ghost had sent him a message, using this little girl as a living note. You can't stay here, Bella, Leo said, his voice surprisingly gentle. It's not safe, it's cold and dark. I'm okay, she insisted, but she shivered slightly in her thin cardigan. I have a warm place with food, and a much better piano, Leo said. The offer was out before he could think about it. He, Leo Bianchi, was inviting a street urchin into his fortress. Bella eyed him with suspicion. Mom said not to go with strangers. Your mom was very smart, Leo said. My name is Leo, this is David and James, we look after this building. It wasn't entirely a lie. You can come for one night, have a hot meal. Play the proper piano. If you don't like it, David here will bring you right back to your loose board. Okay. Bella looked at the dusty piano, then at Leo's face. She was a child who had learned to read adults to survive. She must have seen something in his eyes, not cruelty, but a deep, shocking desperation. A need. Okay, she said softly, for one night. Leo stood up, his knees cracking. He held out his hand. After a pause, Bella placed her small, cool hand in his large, scarred one. The contact sent a jolt through him. It was the first time he had held his granddaughter's hand. James, secure the theatre. No one comes in or out until I say, Leo ordered, his voice back to its commanding tone. David with me. They walked back through the dark passages, the little girl between them. In the elevator going up, Bella stared in wonder at the polished brass and soft lights. Leo watched her reflection in the doors. His mind was racing, plans forming and collapsing. This changed everything. The penthouse doors opened onto a world of unimaginable luxury for a child. Marble floors, vast abstract paintings, a wall of windows showing the entire city. And in the corner, under a soft spotlight, was a magnificent, gleaming black Steinway concert grand piano. Bella's gasp was tiny. She let go of Leo's hand and drifted towards it like a moth to a flame. She stopped a few feet away, almost afraid to touch it. "Go on," Leo said. She reached out one finger and gently pressed middle. See, the note bloomed in the silent room, pure and rich and alive. A smile broke across her face, the first real one he'd seen. It transformed her, lighting up her eyes. It was Isabella's smile. "Can I?" she whispered. Leo just nodded. Bella climbed onto the plush bench, her feet dangling. She took a deep breath, arranged her small hands and began to play, not his nocturne this time, a simple, happy children's song, but the sound was exquisite. The piano was a world away from the broken one in the theatre. As she played, Leo walked to his study, David following. He closed the soundproof door. "David," Leo said, his back to the man, staring out at the city. "I need everything. There was a woman named Elena who died about 2 months ago, probably in the city hospital or in the lower quarter. Sickness. She had a daughter named Bella, around 8. Before that, I need to know who she was, her birth name, her history. I need it by morning, use every source, but quietly. No one outside our inner circle is to know about this. No one." "Understood, boss," David said, his face grim. He had been with Leo since the early days. He remembered Isabella. He remembered the baby. He understood the earthquake that had just walked into their lives in a blue dress. And the girl. Leo turned. The emotion was gone from his face, replaced by the cold iron of the maestro. "She stays here. She is under my protection. She is the most important thing in this city now. You will assign 2 of our most discreet, most loyal men to watch her day and night, even inside these walls. She is not to be touched. She is not to be scared. If any harm comes to her, the person responsible will beg for a death I will not give them. Is that clear?" "Crystal, boss," David said, nodding. He left the room, already pulling out his phone. Leo stood alone for a moment, listening to the faint, cheerful melody coming from his piano. He poured himself a fresh whiskey, his hand steady now. The shock was hardening into a purpose. Isabella was gone. Rose, Elena, was gone. They had been hidden from him, had lived and died without him. But they had sent Bella back, a final, heartbreaking note in their song. He walked back into the living room. Bella had finished her song and was now just experimenting, letting her fingers wander, creating little runs of notes. "Bella," Leo said. She turned. "Are you hungry?" Later, after Bella had eaten more than Leo thought possible for someone so small, cheese pasta, made by his rarely used private chef, and had been given a too big t-shirt to sleep in, she sat on the enormous sofa, looking small and tired. "Leo," she asked, her voice sleepy. "Yes, Bella. Your piano is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." "Thank you," he said. He paused. "Bella, your mom, did she ever talk about her father, your grandfather?" Bella hugged a cushion. "A little. She said he was a musician, a pianist, that he played like an angel but lived in a dark world. She said he had to let them go to keep them safe. She said he probably thought about them every day." She looked up at him, her eyes heavy. "Do you think that's true, that he thought about them?" Leo felt a crack open in his chest, deep and old. "Yes," he said, his voice thick. "I am absolutely certain he never stopped thinking about them for a single day." Bella nodded as if that was a good answer. "I'm glad." "Time for sleep," Leo said, his voice rough. He showed her to a guest room, its bed bigger than her whole former hiding place. He turned down the covers. She climbed in, almost disappearing in the pillows. "Leo," she whispered as he turned to go. "Yes. Will you play for me the song I played? I don't think I finished it right." Leo looked at the piano, then back at the small, hopeful face in the big bed. He hadn't played that song since the night Isabella left. He'd never even touched that piano for anything but business meetings. "Of course," he heard himself say. He sat at the Steinway, the bench cool under him. He flexed his hands, the knuckles scarred and swollen from a lifetime of violence. These were not a pianist's hands anymore. He placed them on the keys, closed his eyes, and began. The music that filled the penthouse was the same but different. It was heavier, laden with 25 years of regret, of violence, of silence. It was raw and unfinished, just like before, but now the sadness in it had a weight, a history. He played to the empty room and to the little girl listening from the bedroom. He played for Isabella. He played for the daughter he never knew. and as he reached the unresolved, questioning end, he let the last note hang in the air, a ghost of a sound. He heard a soft, contented sigh from the doorway. Bella was standing there, clutching the doorframe. "You play it better," she said simply. "It sounds complete when you do it." Then she padded back to bed. Leo sat in the dark, his hands still on the keys as the truth settled over him. This was no accident. Elena Rose had taught her daughter the song, the one unique link to him. She had told her about the theatre he owned. She had from her deathbed sent Bella to him, not for money, not for revenge, for safety, a final, desperate act of a dying mother. But someone else might be looking for Bella. A father, someone from Elena's life, or worse, someone from Leo's own world, who had somehow found out about his lost family and saw a weakness. The maestro's mind, sharp and ruthless, began to work. The emotional shock was now fuel. Bella was his blood. She was the last piece of Isabella, and he would burn the entire city of Casalino to the ground before he let anything happen to her. He picked up the phone and dialed David. "Any news?" "Some boss," David's voice came through. "Found the hospital records. Elena Rossi, age 31, died from pneumonia, complications from a long-term illness. No next of kin listed except a minor daughter, Isabella Bella Rossi. They released the body to a city burial fund. Nothing before she appeared in Casalino 5 years ago. It's like she didn't exist before that. We're digging deeper." "Rossi," Leo repeated. "A common name, a hidden name. Find the hole she came out of." And David put the word out on the street, a new policy. "Anyone who preys on children, especially street children in my territories, will answer to me personally. A permanent solution." "That will cause waves, boss." "Let it cause a tsunami," Leo said and hung up. He walked to the window, looking down at the dark patch where the Orpheum Theatre sat. His past, a ghost in a crumbling building, had reached out and grabbed him, and it had given him a future, small and fragile and sleeping in his guest room. The game had changed. The maestro had a granddaughter to protect. The next few days were a strange new rhythm in the penthouse fortress. Bella was quiet and watchful, like a little bird in a gilded cage. She was clean, well-fed, and wore new clothes that fit her, but her eyes were always moving, taking everything in. She didn't ask to leave. Leo thought she was probably used to staying hidden. She spent hours at the piano, not just his nocturne but other things, songs from cartoons she'd heard through shop windows, little melodies she made up herself. The sound of the piano became the background music to Leo's life of crime. He would be on a call, discussing a shipment or a problem with a rival, and the soft, innocent notes would drift from the living room. It was bizarre, it was calming. Leo watched her. He learned her habits. She liked apple juice, not orange. She was scared of the big painting in the hall. It was just swirls of black and red, but she said it looked like angry clouds. She hummed when she drew pictures with the pencils and paper he'd given her. He also had his men, Paul and Mark, watching her. They were his best. They stood silently in corners, their faces blank. At first, Bella was scared of them. She'd freeze when they moved. Leo told them to smile. It was an odd order for hardened enforcers. Paul, a man with a face like stone, tried. It looked more like a pained grimace, but Bella got used to them. David's digging was slow. Elena Rossi was a ghost. She had no past before showing up in Casalino. No school records, no old addresses. She had worked cash jobs, cleaning offices, washing dishes. She and Bella had lived in a series of tiny rented rooms. "It's like she was hiding, boss," David said one morning in the study. "And she was good at it." "She was my daughter," Leo said flatly. "She learned from the best." He had taught Isabella how to disappear all those years ago to protect her from his enemies. It seemed Rosalina had remembered the lessons. "There's one thing," David said, lowering his voice. "The hospital social worker noted something. When Elena was very sick, she was delirious once. She said, 'Tell Papa the song is finished.' The worker thought she was talking nonsense, about music." Leo's blood ran cold. The song is finished. His nocturne, the unfinished lullaby. It was a message, a final, direct message to him. She knew he would find Bella. She was counting on it. "She wanted me to know," Leo whispered, more to himself than to David. "She was leading her to me." Just then James knocked and entered. His face was tense. "Boss, we have a situation at the Southside warehouse, the one with the imported goods. Marco's crew says there was a break-in. They took some of the specialty electronics." It was a code. The specialty electronics were illegal weapons, a new shipment from Eastern Europe. This was a direct challenge. A theft from a Bianchi warehouse was like slapping Leo in the face. A week ago, Leo's response would have been immediate and violent. He would have gone down there himself, questioned everyone with fists and fear, and painted the warehouse walls red until he had answers. Now he looked towards the living room, where a soft, hesitant version of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star was being played. He didn't want that sound to stop. He didn't want to bring that violence back here, where she could hear it, even through soundproofing. "Handle it, James," Leo said, his voice quiet but firm. "You know what to do, find the thieves, recover the product, make the point clear, but do not bring it to my door, I am unavailable." James blinked, surprised. Leo never delegated punishment for a breach like this. "Yes, boss," he said, recovering quickly. He and David exchanged another look. The girl was changing everything. After they left, Leo walked into the living room. Bella was frowning at the piano keys, her small fingers trying to make a chord. "It's not working," she said, frustrated. Leo sat beside her on the bench. The space felt huge with him there. He pointed to the keys. "Your third finger is on the wrong note. Here." He gently guided her finger to the right key. "Now play it." She did. The chord rang out, perfect and harmonious. Her face lit up with a smile. "You are a musician," she said. "I was," Leo said, "a long time ago." "What happened?" Bella asked, looking up at him with those big, honest eyes. He was quiet for a moment. "How do you explain a lifetime of bad choices to a child?" "I started listening to a different kind of music," he said finally. "A louder, angrier kind, and I forgot how to play the quiet songs." Bella seemed to think about this. "But you remember now," she stated. "Yes," Leo said, looking at her. "I remember now." Later that night, the trouble found them anyway. It started with a phone call. It was Enzo, his consigliere, his oldest friend and most trusted advisor. Enzo's voice was calm, but Leo could hear the edge in it. "Leo, we need to talk. The change in policy regarding street scum. The men are talking. They think you've gone soft. They see you're distracted. The theft today, some are saying you've lost your edge." Leo's grip tightened on the phone. "My edge is just fine, Enzo. My priorities have shifted. The men will adapt, or they will be replaced." "It's not that simple, Leo," Enzo said. "This girl, this Bella, where did she come from? The rumor is she's some stray you picked up. People are curious. Curiosity is dangerous." A cold anger settled in Leo's stomach. "You tell those people that my personal life is not their business, and you tell them that the girl is under my protection. Anyone who is too curious will answer to me, personally." He hung up. He stood in the dark study, his heart pounding. Enzo was right. The ecosystem of fear and respect that kept him in power was delicate. Showing weakness, showing a heart, was like bleeding in shark-infested water. He needed to know more. He needed to know what he was protecting Bella from. He walked to the guest room. The door was slightly ajar. A nightlight cast a soft glow. Bella was asleep, one hand tucked under her cheek. On the nightstand was one of her drawings. He picked it up. It was a picture of 3 people. A woman with long brown hair, Elena, holding hands with a little girl, Bella, and off to the side, separate, was a tall man in black. He had no face, just a blank oval, but he had big hands, and from them she had drawn little musical notes floating towards the woman and the girl. Leo's throat tightened. She had drawn him, the musician, the faceless grandfather. He put the drawing down. As he did, he noticed something else. Sticking out from under Bella's pillow was a small, worn cloth bag. He shouldn't look, it was private, but he was a man who survived by knowing secrets. Gently he pulled it out. It wasn't a bag, it was a small, handmade purse. He opened it. Inside were a few coins, a smooth blue stone, and a folded piece of paper worn soft from being handled. He unfolded it carefully. It was a letter in a woman's elegant handwriting. "My dearest Bella, if you are reading this, then the music has led you where I could not. The man who can play your song the way it was meant to be played, he is your grandfather. His name is Leo Bianchi. You can trust him to keep you safe, even if the world around him is not safe. He loved your grandmother, Isabella, and he loved me, though he never knew me. I chose to stay away to protect us both from his world. But for you, my brave girl, that world is now the only shelter left. Do not be afraid of him, be afraid for him. His heart has been sleeping for a long time. You have woken it up. A man with a heart in our world is in danger. Watch for the vultures, my love, the man with the spider ring. He is not a friend. I love you more than all the songs in the world." "Mom did." Leo's hands were trembling. The paper fluttered like a leaf. The man with the spider ring. He knew that ring. a silver ring with a black onyx spider. Enzo wore that ring. It had been a gift from Leo himself years ago when Enzo had taken a bullet meant for him. Enzo, his oldest friend, his consigliere, he is not a friend. The pieces crashed together in his mind. The timing, Elena's perfect hiding, her sudden appearance in his city, her death from an illness that could have been helped along. Enzo's sudden concern about his edge. Enzo had known. He must have found out about Rosalina. He had been watching her. He had let her die. And he was waiting for Bella to surface to lead him to Leo's ultimate weakness. Or perhaps he had even orchestrated her coming here to throw Leo off balance. This wasn't just a challenge. It was a silent coup in the making. Leo carefully put the letter back in the purse and placed it under the pillow. He looked at Bella's sleeping face. A fierce, terrifying love surged through him, sharp and clear. This child was his blood, and Enzo, his brother-in-arms, had touched his family. There was no greater sin. He walked out of the room, his steps silent on the marble. He went to the living room and stood before the wall of windows. The city was a chessboard, and Enzo had just moved a piece. No, Enzo had been moving pieces for years. He picked up his phone, not the one he used for business, a different secure phone. He dialed a number he hadn't called in a decade. It rang 3 times before a rough voice answered. Yeah. Ramai, Leo said. It's Leo Bianchi. I need a clean sweep. My house is dirty, and I need an external audit. Everything on my consigliere Enzo Greco, last 5 years, especially anything related to a woman named Elena or Isabella Rossi or a child. There was a pause. Ramai was a ghost in the intelligence world, expensive and merciless. That's internal, Leo, that's messy. It's family, Leo said, the word feeling strange and powerful on his tongue. Name your price. Double my usual, half up front. Done, you'll have the details and the money in an hour. I need answers yesterday, Ramai. He ended the call. The maestro was back, but he wasn't the same man. Before he fought for power, for money, for respect. Now he had something real to fight for, something that played piano and drew pictures with no faces. He had to be smart. He couldn't just kill Enzo, the organization would fracture. He needed proof. He needed to know how deep the betrayal went. And he needed to secure Bella absolutely. The next morning, over breakfast, pancakes for Bella, black coffee for Leo, he made a decision. Bella, he said, today we're going on a trip to the country. My house there has a garden. And a piano, of course. Bella looked up, syrup on her chin. Is it far? Yes, Leo said. Very safe and very far from angry clouds. He nodded towards the painting she hated. She gave a small smile. Okay. It was a retreat, a strategic one. He was pulling his most valuable asset away from the battlefield. David and James would stay in the city to run things and watch Enzo. Paul and Mark would come to the country house, along with a new team Leo was bringing in, men loyal only to him personally, not to the Bianchi family name. As they were preparing to leave, the private elevator door opened. Enzo walked in. He was a tall, elegant man, always dressed in a sharp suit. The silver spider ring was on his right hand. He smiled, but it didn't reach his cold, calculating eyes. Leo, I was just coming to see you. And who is this? He looked at Bella with exaggerated warmth. Bella instinctively moved closer to Leo, hiding slightly behind his leg. She was staring at Enzo's hands. This is Bella, Leo said, his voice a neutral flatline. A guest. A charming guest, Enzo said, crouching down. Hello, Bella, I'm Enzo, an old friend of Leo. He held out his hand. Bella didn't take it. She just looked at the spider ring, her face pale. She's shy, Leo said, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. We were just leaving, Enzo. What do you need? Enzo straightened up, his smile fading. A word in private. His eyes flicked to Bella. We can talk on the phone later. I'm busy, Leo said, turning to guide Bella towards the door. It's about the warehouse theft, Enzo said, his voice hardening slightly. James's methods were messy. It's causing problems with the suppliers. They need to hear from you. The Leo Bianchi they respect, not from your assistants. It was a direct jab, a challenge to his authority in front of the child. Leo stopped. He turned slowly, and the look he gave Enzo was the maestro's look. Pure, controlled, violent promise. The suppliers will wait, he said, each word a chip of ice. My family does not wait. The word family hung in the air like a gunshot. Enzo's eyes widened just a fraction. He had his confirmation. He knew who Bella was. Of course, Enzo said smoothly, recovering. Family first, we'll talk when you return. He gave a slight nod, his eyes lingering on Bella for a moment too long before he turned and left. The elevator doors closed. Bella was trembling. You saw his ring, Leo said softly, kneeling. Bella nodded, her eyes huge. The spider, like in the letter, Mom said. I know what Mom said, Leo interrupted gently. And she was right, that's why we're going to the country, you will be safe there. Will you be there? Bella asked, her voice small. I will be with you, Leo promised. And for the first time in his life, a promise felt more important than a threat. The drive to the country house was long. Bella slept most of the way, exhausted by the fear and the change. Leo watched the city give way to hills and trees. His phone buzzed constantly, updates from David, a terse message from Ramai saying digging has begun, but he ignored most of them. The safe house was not a house. It was a small, walled estate, more like a fortress hidden in a vineyard. The piano here was an old upright, not as grand as the Steinway, but it was in tune. For 3 days it was almost peaceful. Bella explored the garden. Leo taught her a few more chords on the piano. Paul and Mark patrolled the walls, but the tension was a wire pulled tight. Leo knew the calm couldn't last. On the 4th night, Ramai's report came. It was a flood of damning information. Financial transfers from shell companies linked to Enzo to known rivals. Intercepted communications showing Enzo had been the one to leak the location of the warehouse shipment, a setup to make Leo look weak. And the worst part, hospital records altered. Elena Rossi's illness had been a simple, treatable infection when she was first admitted. Her records were changed, and the medication prescribed was subtly wrong, a drug combination that would slowly weaken the heart. It was signed off by a doctor deep in Enzo's debt. Enzo hadn't just let her die, he had murdered Leo's daughter. Leo read the report in his study, the paper crumpling in his fist. The rage was a white-hot, silent scream inside him. He wanted to drive back to the city and tear Enzo apart with his bare hands, but the maestro's mind took over. This was evidence. This was power. His phone rang. It was David, his voice was strained. Boss, it's happening. Enzo is making his move. He's called a meeting of all the captains, tonight, at the social club. He's saying you've abandoned your post for a personal matter, that you're unfit to lead. He's got maybe half of them leaning his way. Leo looked at the clock. It was 8 p.m. When is the meeting? Midnight. I'll be there, Leo said. Boss, it's a trap. He'll be expecting you to come in guns blazing, emotional. He'll use it against you. I won't be coming in guns blazing, Leo said, his voice deadly calm. I'll be coming in with a ledger. Tell James to be ready at the back entrance. And David, bring the doctor, the one who signed my daughter's death warrant. Make sure he's willing to talk. He hung up. He walked to the living room where Bella was watching a movie. She looked up. You have to go, she said. It wasn't a question. For a little while, Leo said. Paul and Mark will stay here with you. You must do exactly what they say. No matter what you hear, understand. She nodded, her lower lip trembling. Is it the Spider-Man? Yes, Leo said. It's time for someone to clean out the web. He put on his jacket. He didn't take a gun from the rack. He took only the folder with Ramai's report, and from his desk he took one small, thin stiletto knife, slipping it into his sleeve. This was not a war of bullets tonight. It was a war of truth, and then of vengeance. He kissed the top of Bella's head, the gesture awkward and new. Play something for me, he said. I'll listen for it when I come back. Then he walked out into the night, to go and reclaim his kingdom, not for power, but for the right to come home to a little girl who played the piano. The drive back to Casalino was a silent, dark rush. Leo sat in the back of the armoured car, his face lit only by the glow of his phone screen. He read Ramai's report again, each line a hammer blow. Controlled substance mismatch. Dr. Giovanni Ferri, outstanding gambling debts to Greco-associated bookies. Financial trail to offshore account Black Widow LLC. It was all there. Enzo's betrayal was careful, greedy, and utterly cold. James was driving. David has the doctor in the back room of the social club. He's scared, he'll talk. The captains are gathering now. Enzo is already there, playing the host. Good, Leo said, his voice like gravel. Let him feel confident. Let him think he's already won. The Bianchi Social Club was a front, a respectable-looking building in the old district. It had mahogany bars, card tables, and back rooms for private business. Tonight, it was filled with the most dangerous men in the city. Leo entered through the rear service entrance, James a shadow behind him. The sounds of the meeting washed over him, deep voices, the clink of glasses, the tense silence that wasn't really silence. He stood in the dark hallway, listening. Enzo's voice, smooth and reasonable, floated out from the main room. And family is important, of course, but our family is here, the men who bleed for this business. When the leader puts a stranger above the blood of his soldiers, the foundation cracks. We've all seen it, the hesitation, the failed responses. Leo stepped into the doorway. The room was full, maybe 20 captains and senior men, all turned, conversations died. Failed responses, Enzo, Leo said, walking into the room. The crowd parted for him like water, like the warehouse theft you arranged. The room went perfectly still. Enzo was standing at the head of the table. He didn't look surprised, he looked ready. Leo, you came, good, we are discussing leadership. Your recent distractions have cost us money and respect. My only distraction, Leo said, his voice calm, has been uncovering a cancer in this organization. He threw the folder onto the large table. It slid to a stop in front of a captain named Marco, a cancer named Enzo Greco. Enzo laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Desperate accusations. You disappear with a child and you return with fairy tales. Open it, Marco, Leo commanded. Marco, a wary man, opened the folder. He scanned the first page, his eyes widening. He flipped to the next, then he looked at Enzo, his face hardening. He passed the folder to the next man. What is this? Enzo said, but his smile was tighter now. That, Leo said, is a record of you selling our shipment routes to the Verdi family. That is you siphoning money from our accounts into your own. And that, Leo's voice dropped, becoming dangerously quiet, is you ordering the murder of a woman named Elena Rossi, my daughter. A gasp rippled through the room. Many of the older men remembered Isabella. They knew the story. Enzo's face turned to stone. This is nonsense. Forged papers, a story to cover your own failures. Who is this Elena? You have a child hiding in your penthouse and now you invent a dead daughter. Very convenient. The doctor is in the back room, Enzo, Leo said. Dr. Ferry, he's very sorry about his gambling debts. He's telling David everything. How you pressured him, how you paid him to change the medication. For the first time, a flicker of real fear showed in Enzo's eyes. He hadn't accounted for the doctor being caught. This is a setup, Enzo shouted, slamming his hand on the table. The spider ring gleamed. He is weak. He is trying to cleanse his own failure by blaming me. Look at him. He cares more about a little orphan's piano lessons than he does about your pockets. Some of the men looked uncertain. Greed was a powerful motivator. Enzo had promised them more under his rule. The child, Leo said, his voice ringing clear, is my granddaughter. Isabella's granddaughter, my blood. Enzo didn't just betray the business. He betrayed my family. He killed my flesh and blood. If he will do that to me, your boss, what do you think he will do to you when you are no longer useful? That hit home. Loyalty in their world was brutal, but family was sacred. Betraying a boss's family was the ultimate sin. Enzo saw the tide turning. He reached for the gun under his jacket. He was fast, but Leo was faster. The stiletto knife dropped from Leo's sleeve into his hand. In one fluid motion, he lunged forward, not at Enzo's chest, but at his gun hand. The thin, sharp blade sank into the back of Enzo's wrist, severing tendons. Enzo screamed, a high, raw sound, and the gun clattered to the floor. Leo didn't stop. He grabbed Enzo by the hair and slammed his face down onto the heavy wooden table. Once, twice, there was a sickening crunch. Leo pulled him up, blood streaming from Enzo's broken nose. The room was frozen, every man watching the maestro's wrath. You touched my family, Leo whispered, the words only for Enzo. You took my daughter from me, you tried to take my granddaughter. He yanked Enzo's right hand up, the spider ring mocking him. You wear my gift while you poison my tree. With a brutal twist, he broke Enzo's finger and ripped the ring off. Enzo screamed again. Leo threw him to the floor at the feet of the captains. Enzo curled up, moaning, clutching his ruined hand. Leo stood over him, breathing hard. He looked around the room, meeting each man's eyes. This is the fate of a traitor. This is the fate of anyone who threatens what is mine. Are there any other questions about my leadership, about my distractions? The silence was absolute. Then one by one the men shook their heads. Marco stood. The Bianchi family is strong. We are with you, Leo. A low murmur of agreement went around the room. Clean this up, Leo said to James, nodding at the sobbing Enzo on the floor. Take him to the old fish packing plant. Make sure he understands the cost of his actions, for a long, long time. He didn't need to say more. Everyone knew the fish packing plant was a place where screams were swallowed by the sound of machinery, and where justice in their world was slow and terrible. Leo picked up the spider ring from the floor. He looked at it for a moment, then pocketed it. A trophy, a reminder. He walked out of the club, the cold night air hitting his face. The battle was won. The organization was his again, more firmly than ever, but he felt no triumph, only a hollow exhaustion and a desperate need to get back to the vineyard. David met him at the car. The doctor talked. We have it all on recording, it's over. It's not over, Leo said, getting into the car. Drive back to the country house, now. The first light of dawn was colouring the sky when Leo arrived back at the vineyard estate. He was tired to his bones, his knuckles scraped and sore, the ghost of Enzo's blood on his hands. Paul met him at the gate. All quiet here, boss, she's asleep. Leo walked into the quiet house. He went straight to the guest room. Bella was asleep, one hand clutching the worn cloth purse with her mother's letter. He stood there for a long time, just watching her breathe. The rage, the violence, the cold calculus of power, it all melted away, leaving only a vast, terrifying feeling of responsibility. This small, fragile life was in his hands. He had just torn his world apart to make it safe for her, and he would do it again. He went to the living room and sat at the old upright piano. He didn't play. He just sat in the silence, the events of the night replaying behind his eyes. A small sound made him turn. Bella was standing in the doorway in her nightgown, rubbing her eyes. You came back, she said, her voice thick with sleep. I told you I would, Leo said. She walked over and climbed onto the piano bench beside him. She looked at his hands. There was a dark bruise forming on one knuckle, a small cut on another. She didn't ask about them. Did you fix it? She asked quietly. Yes, Leo said. The spider is gone. He won't hurt anyone ever again. Bella nodded as if she understood everything. She looked at the piano keys. Will you play the song, the whole thing, now that it's finished? Leo looked at her. The song is finished. Elena's last words, she didn't just mean the nocturne. She meant her plan, her journey. She had finished her song by bringing Bella to him. Now it was his turn to play. He placed his hands on the keys. He started the nocturne, the same haunting melody from the crumbling theatre. But this time he didn't stop at the old, unfinished end. He played through the sadness, through the regret, and then he added a new section. It wasn't happy. It was complex. It had moments of light, like a sunbeam through a dark forest, and moments of deep, protective strength. It was a grandfather's promise. It was a lullaby for a new beginning. He played until his fingers ached. When the last note faded, the room was filled with a peaceful quiet. Bella leaned her head against his arm. That was better, she whispered. That was the right ending. Leo put his arm around her small shoulders. They sat there together as the sun rose fully, painting the room in gold. The maestro was gone. In his place was just Leo, a grandfather, a man with a song to teach and a little girl to keep safe. He knew it wasn't truly over. His world was still full of danger. There would be other challenges, other enemies. But for now, in this quiet dawn with the weight of a sleeping child against him, he had everything he needed. He had his family back, and he had finally finished the song. Thank you for LISDNING. Did the ending give you chills? What would you do if you discovered a secret heir in the Mafia world? Comment BLLA if you loved the story, and tell us where you're watching from. Subscribe for more thrilling tailies where music and fate collide.